Hello, today I'm going to do a piece of 2-inch thick hard maple, and I'm going to make a handwrited sign out of it. And I'm going to do outset letters. I've already got my letters stenciled on here. If you're interested in see how I get my letters on here, I can do a separate video on that, but that's another video all on itself. So I've got everything laid out, and this is going to be a stand-up sign. I may put legs underneath it, but it's going to be one that's why I made it so thick, so I can just stand it up on its side. I'm going to do outset letters, so I'm going to use my V-carve bit to do the outset letters, and then I'm going to use my 60-degree bit and go in and do an outline around it, and then I'll probably put a chamfer on the top and the sides. So anyway, let's get set up, and I'll get my bit set up and we'll get ready to start carving. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my bit set to 3/16 of an inch deep. And the way I like doing this, I just take it and I use this dial which adjusts the height through the depth of the router bit, and I put it down till it just touches the board. Okay, so once I get it touching on the board, this right here is where my depth is, and you have this little gauge here that you can spin around. So I'll put that on 0. So now I got that set on 0, and then I'll just take my dial and I'll turn it around until I'm at 3/16 of an inch. So there's a 16th, there's an 8th, and there's 3/16. Then I just lock my router base in. So now I'm at 3/16 of an inch deep. Get that where you can see it. So now I got my depth set. So we'll get set up and we'll start routing. Okay, so I've got all this done. Now I'm going to put my background in. And I'm just going to take a pencil, and it's just a rough. I don't have to follow this pencil line, but I found it makes it easier to kind of get it started. I'm just kind of randomly going around these letters. Okay, so now I'm going to take my 60-degree V-bit, and I've already got it loaded in the router, and this one's going at a 1/4 inch deep. My profile bit was 3/16. The double fluted 60-degree bit is at 1/4 inch deep, so I'm going to get set up, and I'll start. What I'm going to do first, I'll route around this edge, and I'll come back in, and I'll just kind of move around in circles, and it'll leave, you'll see it, it'll be kind of a cool textured background inside of the letters here, and of course I'll do inside the O too. Okay, so that's around the L, and that's kind of basically what it's going to look like. I'm going to time lapse through the rest of this because this takes a little bit of time. Not a lot of time, but it's going to be a really long video. I want to speed some of this up, and I'll do time lapse for the rest of this. But so that's really cool looking, and I will come back in the end when I'll do it off camera, because like I said, I got my camera. I have to redo my camera setup on this, but for right now this is going to work. But I got a couple places along the edge that I want to smooth out just a little bit, and maybe some of these high spots. I don't want any too high spots in here. So anyway, I'm going to time lapse, get all the rest of this done, and then we'll take a look at it. So there it is. Like I said, I got a few spots, like some of these spots in these corners. I'll come get a little bit closer to the letters and stuff like that. But anyway, pretty happy with that. That came out pretty cool. And then I'll go around and I'll touch up some of these edges to make it nice and smooth like I did around the letters. And I think there's one spot, I got a little bit close to the letter right there with that one, but I'll come back in and trim that up with the profile bit. So I'm going to do a little bit of just cleaning up on this off camera, and then we'll be ready to get it ready to paint the inside, to paint the background. Okay, so I'm ready to put some sanding sealer on this, and the reason I'm putting sanding sealer on it is I'm going to spray this inside with black paint or ink, and I want it to be able to sand off the top surface. So I'm going to coat the top. I'm going to coat the bottom too, and it'll make the other ink and stuff stick better to it, but mainly I'm wanting to coat the top to protect it. So I've just got my little critter spray gun, and I'm going to this is a water-based sanding sealer, so I'm just going to put two light coats, one coat, let it dry, and come back, put one more coat, and then I'll be ready to spray the inside. I'm hitting this from other angles. It's probably heavier than what I need, but I just want to make sure I hit it from all angles. So that stuff dries really quick, so I'll give that probably 15-20 minutes. I'll come back, I'll spray one more coat on it, then I'll be ready to spray the inside. Okay, so I put 2 coats of sanding sealer on this thing. First one I let dry for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I put the second coat on and I let it dry for probably almost 30 minutes. And what I'm doing now, I'm just gonna tape off the edges of this before I spray the inside. And the main reason I'm doing that, I'm not too much worried about the top, is I don't want to get this paint or ink onto the end grain of the board. Just make it harder to clean up. So, and it doesn't matter. All I really want is the paint down inside my background area. So I'll do that real quick. And then what I'm going to use for my paint on the inside, it's called marsh ink. And it's basically a stencil ink is what it is. And it's black. So I'm just going to come in, I'll spray it all the way across. And mainly, I'm not worried about the top. I'm just worried about getting everything down below. Anything that I routed out inside there, I want to make sure it's covered good. So. And I'll hit this from several different angles, just to make sure I get all the sides and everything good. It looks like I got it pretty good there. I don't see any spots that I missed. Boy, this stuff really covers good. You can use primer on this too, black primer. They say you don't want to use paint because paint will bleed down into the board and you have to do a lot of sanding to get it back off. But ink and flat paint, like primer and even some flat paints, will do the same thing. And then the sanding sealer I put on there, that's maybe a little bit of an overkill, but that'll also help keep this paint from absorbing down into the grain of the wood. So what I'll do, I'll let this dry good, and then probably, I'll depend on how it looks, but I probably won't put a second coat on this. I'll let it dry good, and then we'll come back with our sander, sand across the top and remove it off all the upper parts of the board. Then it'll just be the black left down in the bottom. Okay, so this thing's dried overnight. So I'm gonna remove this tape off here, and then we're gonna sand this thing down and remove all the paint from the upper surfaces. So I just got my little Dewalt hand sander, and I've got 150 grit sandpaper on here. I'm gonna start out with that. Depending on how hard this stuff is to get off, I may have to go to a lower grit, but we'll see what happens here. Okay, I just wanted to show you something here. So all that ink that I sprayed across the top, that came off really easy. The sanding sealer worked great, keeping that from sinking down into the surfaces. And the biggest issue I still have now, this is the ink from my inkjet printer when I did my overlay onto this thing. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit more sanding to get that off, but that's not gonna be that big of a deal. I just wanted to show you that sanding sealer with spraying that ink over the top of it works great. You saw how easy that came off of the surface right there. That was very little sanding with only 150 grit sandpaper. So I'll finish sanding this up, and I'll get the rest of this off. I'll do that in a time lapse to get the rest of this done good. Okay, I got it all sanded down. I'll come back probably with some 220 and put a finish sand on it, but let's blow all the dust out of it and see what it is. That's pretty awesome. I always love that part of it. So anyway, I'm gonna take it and then we'll get some finish sprayed on it and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I decided I'm gonna go ahead and put the 45-degree chamfer around the edges of this. I'm hoping I don't get into that because that piece right there came really close to the edge, but I don't think I will. But I'm just gonna put a chamfer on both sides and across the top, but not on the bottom, because that's where obviously the sign's gonna sit. And then I'll probably flip it over and chamfer the back too. But okay, this is really hard wood, so I got a few little burn marks, but I've done this before and those burn marks will sand right out. So I'm going to sand that down. I'm going to put the chamfer on the back, sand that down, put a finish sand on it, and then we'll come back and we'll spray a finish on it. Okay, I'm ready to start putting finish on this, and I'm going to use this Helmsman Spar Urethane. It's a water-based Spar Urethane. It's a clear gloss, and I like the water-based. Just one, it's easier to clean up, and then two, it dries quicker, so I don't have to wait so long between coats. And I'm using my critter spray gun, which if you've never seen one of these things are awesome. I'll do a whole video on one of this thing one time. So anyway, so I'll get a little spray going. So I'm just going to hit the bottom and I'm going to put it over on my painter's triangle. So and all I'm wanting on this first coat, just a nice thin coat to kind of seal it in a little bit. And there it is, all sanded down too. I did a little bit of touch up in some of the black, and then so I'm ready to put a finish on it. It's gonna be kind of hard to hit this backside filming, but that's okay. Okay, so I will let that sit and dry, and then I'll come hit it with probably at least 2 or 3 more coats till I feel like I got a pretty good finish on it, and then we'll be good to go. So I'll finish it up and we'll come back, we'll take a look at the finished product. Well, there it is, all finished. So I've got several coats of the Spar Urethane on here. The finish came out really good. Super happy with it. I had to come back, touch a few things up here and there, but super happy with it. It's a really thick board. It sits up just like that. That's how it's going to sit. Anyway, I sure do appreciate you watching. Please like, please subscribe. If you've got anything you want to see me do, let me know in the comments. Any suggestions? I'm relatively new to the sign making. I've done a lot of other woodworking, but relatively new to this, so I'm still learning too. So I appreciate you watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share my videos. Thank you.